at every point of these layers, we have the cybersecurity ensuring confidentiality, integrity, and availability. What actually happens when you sit down behind your system and you start to communicate? So the application layer creates data and provides service to the user. So when you have your Outlook or you have your Gmail, you as a user, you sit down behind your computer, you compose a message or you design a flyer or you created a video. So this is the application. The application does that for you. So it helps you in creation of data. Then we have the presentation layer. So at the presentation layer, the computer formats and encrypts this data that you have created on the application layer so that it can be shared or it can be sent or it can be useful by the computer. The computer will not be interpreting data as an image that you are seeing or as a video you are seeing. It will encrypt it in a particular format, and that is where we have things like the JPEG and the MPEG. These are the format and the encryption. So when the presentation, you know, when the data is being presented in a particular a session is established. So what happens during the session is because is devices it's like devices get the attention of one another. So when you want to communicate to someone, you first of all have to establish a link between you and the person. If I have someone in another room and the first thing I do is to knock on the door. The person opens the door, then I begin to speak. So when the door opens, it's like the session has been established. So the session layer is responsible for establishing a session and make use of things like the session ID. This is where we talk about the handshake between the sender and the receiver. Then we move next to the transport layer. So when the session is established, transport cannot happen. That means communication cannot happen. So in this case, we have, or this is where we make use of the ports addressing. So we have port 80, port, one four one. We can have port 8080. We have so many ports that are dedicated to different kind of communication. For example, we have the FTP. When you are making use of FTP, we have like port 21. We are establishing a session. We have port 22. So we have different ports that are responsible for transporting or communicating or sending data to the receiver. Remember, after a session has been established, then we have a transport layer wherein data is being actually transported. Then we have a network layer. So when data is being transported at the network layer, this data is put, which is segments in the transport layer, is now converted into packets and then sent to destination. So this is necessary when you are sending data to a different network over the internet, over a very wide area. Data network layer is where routing happens. So data in form of packet is being routed to the network where the data is being sent to. So we can have several network, like we know. We have several network of computers on the internet. So and this each network have an address, which is the IP address. So network layer is responsible for sending or routing the data to the right network. After the network layer, we have the data link layer. So when the data arrives at the right network, the data link layer is where the packets are framed, are sent to a local area network, using MAC address. So devices on the local area network have what we call the MAC address, and then these packets from the network layer are broken down into frames and sent to the respective devices on the network, and then the devices now transmit to the actual devices on which the user of the devices exists. What I mean by that is, like, for example, there may be 10 devices on the network. I may have my laptop, I may have my mobile phones, I may have my other IoT devices that are being configured to share the same network. So the physical layer establish a connection directly with the LAN. So either by means of your cable, like I mentioned earlier, you can have your Cat5 cable that is connecting your laptop to the LAN, or your Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, which is connecting your mobile device. So frames physical layer is where these frames are converted into bits and sent directly into your device. And then we have a reverse of what we have been talking about, which means like when it gets into the device, then the presentation, the application now also decodes it and interprets it to the user on the other end. So this is basically what happens when between the sender and the receiver on a network. At every point of these layers, we have the cybersecurity ensuring confidentiality, integrity, and availability.